Hashtag the hunted soldier Marcus Ghost. Chun crouched behind the twisted wreckage of what had once been a Zephyrian patrol craft, his breathing steady despite the chaos erupting around him. Plasma bolts seared through the air above his head, painting the alien jungle in violent shades of blue and green. The acrid smell of burned vegetation mixed with the metallic tang of superheated metal. 3 days. That's how long he'd been running through this godforsaken planet, and every hour brought new hunters. First, it had been the Zephyrian military forces who'd shot down his transport. Then, the Korthak mercenaries had joined the hunt, drawn by the bounty on his head. Now, even the local wildlife seemed to want him dead. Ghost checked his rifle's power cell. 15% remaining. Not good. The sound of approaching hoverbikes made him tense. Through the dense foliage, he could see the distinctive purple glow of Zephyrian engines. 3 bikes, each carrying 2 armed soldiers. Their scanning equipment would pick up his heat signature in minutes. He'd earned his nickname during the war against the Hegemony Coalition, where human forces had been outnumbered 50-1. While other soldiers fought with brute force, Marcus had learned to disappear, to strike from shadows, to be everywhere and nowhere at once. But here, on this alien world called Nexus Prime, even his legendary stealth skills were being pushed to their limits. The hoverbikes passed overhead, their pilots speaking in the clicking, musical language of the Zephyrians. Ghost understood enough to know they were spreading out, trying to box him in. Standard military tactics. He'd used the same approach countless times himself. What made this situation different was why they were hunting him. Princess Lyralii. The memory of her violet eyes flashed through his mind. He'd been hired as her bodyguard during the peace negotiations between the human colonial authority and the Zephyrian Empire. What was supposed to be a simple diplomatic mission had turned into something far more complicated when assassins had attacked the summit. In the chaos that followed, he'd done what he was trained to do: protect his charge at all costs. The problem was that his charge happened to be the most wanted woman in 3-star systems. Ghost moved through the undergrowth with practiced silence. The Nexus Prime jungle was unlike anything on Earth. The trees grew in impossible spirals, their bark gleaming like polished metal. Bioluminescent fungi cast an eerie glow that played tricks with shadows, and the sounds clicks, whistles, and harmonics that no Earth creature could produce. A branch snapped behind him. Ghost spun, rifle raised, finger on the trigger. But instead of Zephyrian soldiers, he found himself face to face with a creature that looked like a cross between a tiger and a praying mantis. Its 6 eyes focused on him with predatory intelligence, and its mandibles clicked menacingly. "Easy there, beautiful," Ghost whispered, slowly backing away. The creature's camouflage shifted, its skin changing from jungle green to a mottled brown that matched the forest floor. Just 2 apex predators having a moment. The creature tilted its head, studying him. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then, plasma fire erupted from the trees behind them, and both predators dove for cover. Target acquired. Grid 77 Alpha. The Zephyrian soldier's voice carried clearly through the humid air. Ghost rolled behind a massive tree root as energy blasts scorched the ground where he'd been standing. The insectoid creature hissed and melted back into the jungle, apparently deciding that discretion was the better part of valor. Smart creature. Ghost counted muzzle flashes. For soldiers, advancing in formation. Professional, disciplined, but making one crucial mistake: they were thinking like Zephyrians, not like humans. They expected him to run, to keep fleeing deeper into the wilderness. Instead, Ghost did what any good predator would do. He turned and attacked. Moving with fluid precision, he flanked the squad's left wing. His rifle coughed twice, sending hypersonic slugs through the humid air. 2 soldiers dropped before their companions even realized they were under fire. The remaining Zephyrians spun toward his position, but Ghost was already moving, using their own momentum against them. The 3rd soldier's plasma rifle tracked toward Ghost's new position, but the human was faster. A knife thrown with deadly accuracy found its mark, and the Zephyrian collapsed with a gurgle. The last soldier, apparently the squad leader based on his ornate armor markings, raised his hands in surrender. Ghost kept his rifle trained on the alien center mass as he approached. "You are the human called Ghost," the Zephyrian said in accented but clear English. The one who stole our princess. Stole. Ghost's voice was cold. I saved her life. There's a difference. The soldier's feathered crest flared with what Ghost recognized as confusion. Saved? The reports said you kidnapped Princess Lyralii during the peace summit, that you killed her guards and fled with her to claim the bounty placed by the Korthak Syndicate. Ghost felt something cold settle in his stomach. What bounty? 10 million credits for the princess, alive or dead. The Syndicate wants revenge for her father's military campaigns against their operations. Every mercenary, pirate, and soldier of fortune in this sector is hunting for her. The pieces began falling into place in Ghost's mind. The attack at the summit hadn't been random terrorism. It had been a setup. Someone had leaked the princess's location and schedule to the Syndicate, and when that failed, they'd put a price on her head and painted him as the kidnapper. Where is she now? The Zephyrian demanded. Ghost smiled, though there was no warmth in it. Safe. Somewhere your people will never find her. It was partially true. He'd hidden Lyralii in a cave system about 10 kilometers away, with enough supplies for a week. But safe was a relative term when half the galaxy wanted her dead. The Zephyrian soldier reached slowly for his communicator. Ghost's rifle never wavered. I wouldn't, Ghost said softly. Your choice is simple. Walk away and pretend you never saw me, or join your friends on the ground. What's it going to be? The alien's large, dark eyes studied Ghost for a long moment. Whatever he saw there made him drop his weapon and step back. This is not over, human. The princess must be returned to her people. She is to be married to Prince Thrakek of the Dominion. It is a union that will bring peace to millions of worlds. Funny thing about peace, Ghost replied, watching the soldier carefully. Sometimes it comes at too high a price. The Zephyrian backed away into the jungle, his form quickly disappearing among the twisted trees. Ghost waited several minutes before moving, listening to the sounds of the forest. When he was satisfied that no immediate threats remained, he began the long trek back to where he'd left the princess. As he moved through the alien landscape, Ghost's mind raced. A forced marriage, a galaxy-wide manhunt, and, somewhere in the shadows, puppet masters pulling strings to ensure that Princess Lyralii never made it home alive. He'd signed up to be a bodyguard, not to start an interstellar incident. But, as his old drill sergeant used to say, plans are what happen before the shooting starts. The shooting had definitely started. Now Ghost had to decide how far he was willing to go to keep his word. He'd promised to protect Princess Lyralii, and Marcus Chun had never broken a promise in his life. He wasn't about to start now, even if it meant taking on half the galaxy to do it. Hashtag the Cave of Secrets. Princess Lyralii of the Zephyrian Empire sat in the dim cave, her normally pristine royal robes torn and stained from their desperate flight through the jungle. Her violet eyes tracked every shadow, every sound that might herald the return of either her protector or their enemies. She clutched a small plasma pistol that Ghost had left with her, though she knew it would do little good if they were discovered. 3 hours had passed since the human had left to deal with the patrol that had gotten too close to their hiding spot. 3 hours of listening to distant weapons fire and wondering if she'd ever see him again. The cave system stretched deep into the mountains of Nexus Prime, carved by underground rivers that had long since found new channels. Bioluminescent crystals provided enough light to see by, casting everything in an ethereal blue glow. It was beautiful in its way, but Lyralii found no comfort in the beauty, not when everything she believed about her life had been shattered in the span of a single day. The sound of approaching footsteps made her raise the pistol. The steps were too heavy to be Zephyrian, and she knew the cadence well enough by now to recognize Ghost's measured pace. Still, she kept the weapon ready until his familiar silhouette appeared at the cave entrance. "It's me," Ghost called softly, recognizing her caution. He carried his rifle in one hand and a pack salvage from the dead patrol in the other. "We need to talk." Lyralii lowered her weapon, but didn't relax entirely. "Did you kill them?" "3 of them. The 4th I let live." Ghost set down the pack and pulled out water purification tablets and ration packs. "He told me some interesting things about why everyone wants you dead." The princess's feathered crest drooped, a sign of shame in her species. "The marriage contract." Ghost paused in his inventory of supplies. "So you knew." "I suspected. My father spoke of it often, though never in my presence. A political alliance with the Thrakek Dominion." I am to be bartered away to secure trade routes and mining rights. Her voice carried a bitterness that surprised Ghost. In the 3 months he'd served as her bodyguard, she'd always been the perfect diplomat, gracious and composed. That's not why people are hunting you, Ghost said, settling onto a rocky outcrop across from her. Someone's put a 10 million credit bounty on your head. The Korthak Syndicate wants revenge for your father's campaigns against their operations. Lyraliai's eyes widened. 10 million? That would buy a fleet of warships, or a lot of very motivated killers. Ghost studied her face in the crystal light. The question is, who leaked your location to set up the attack at the summit? Someone wanted you dead before you could be married off to Prince Thrakek. The princess was quiet for a long moment, her mind working through the implications. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. My brother, Crown Prince Valak, he opposes the marriage as much as I do, but for different reasons. If I marry Prince Thrakek, the Dominion gains significant influence in our empire. Valak fears it will undermine his position as heir. Lyraliai's hands clenched into fists. But surely he wouldn't resort to assassination. I'm his sister. Ghost had seen enough family betrayals during his years as a soldier to know better, but he kept that observation to himself. Who else would have access to your security details? Who knew the exact time and location of the summit? The Royal Council, my father's advisors, the intelligence services. She paused. The marriage negotiators from the Dominion. Prince Thrakek himself? It's possible. If I die before the wedding, he keeps the dowry but gains freedom to marry elsewhere. Perhaps someone more strategically valuable. Lyraliai's voice hardened. And if my death can be blamed on human treachery, it might even serve to unite our peoples against a common enemy. Ghost felt another piece of the puzzle click into place, making me the perfect patsy. Human mercenary kills Zephyrian princess during peace talks. Both sides get outraged, the treaty talks collapse, and everyone goes back to shooting at each other. Except that you saved me instead of killing me. Lyraliai looked at him with something approaching wonder. Why? You could have claimed the bounty yourself. 10 million credits would make you wealthy beyond imagination. I gave my word, Ghost said simply. Besides, I never did like people who hurt innocents for profit. Innocent, Lyraliai laughed, but there was no humor in it. I am a princess of a star-spanning empire. My hands are not clean, Marcus Chun. I have given orders that resulted in deaths. I have stood silent while my father made decisions that brought suffering to countless worlds. How am I innocent? It was the first time she'd used his real name instead of his call sign. Ghost found that significant, though he wasn't sure why. Because you're not responsible for the sins of your empire, he replied. And because you're trying to do better. That peace summit wasn't your father's idea, was it? Lyraliai's silence was answer enough. You've been pushing for negotiations with the human colonial authority for months, trying to find a way to end a war that's been going on for the better part of a decade. That's not the action of someone who doesn't care about innocent lives. And look where it's brought us. Hiding in a cave while assassins hunt us across the galaxy. She gestured around at their primitive surroundings. Perhaps my brother was right. Perhaps peace is an impossible dream. Ghost stood and moved to the cave entrance, scanning the jungle beyond. Peace isn't impossible. It's just expensive. The question is whether you're willing to pay the price. What do you mean? Right now, everyone thinks you're either dead or kidnapped. That gives us an advantage. We can move without them expecting it. But eventually, we'll have to make a choice. Do we try to get you back to the Zephyrian Empire so you could be married off to a man you've never met? Or do we find another way? Lyraliai stood as well, moving to join him at the cave mouth. In the distance, they could see the lights of aircraft searching the jungle. What other way? We disappear. New identities, new lives. I know people who can arrange it. You'd never be Princess Lyraliai again, but you'd be free to choose your own path. And the peace negotiations would have to happen without you, assuming anyone still wants peace after this mess. Lyraliai considered this in silence for several minutes. Finally, she spoke. There's a third option. I'm listening. We expose whoever is behind this conspiracy. Prove that the attack on the summit was orchestrated by someone who wants the war to continue. If we can do that, we might be able to salvage the peace process. Ghost turned to look at her. That's a dangerous game. We'd be making ourselves targets for everyone involved. The Syndicate, the Dominion, possibly your own people if your brother is involved. Yes, but it's the only way to ensure that others don't die for political convenience. Lyralii met his gaze steadily. I won't run and hide while a war continues because of cowardice and greed. Ghost studied her face, seeing steel beneath the diplomatic polish. This was the real Princess Lyralii, not the carefully crafted public persona he'd been guarding for 3 months. This was someone worth protecting. All right, he said finally, but we do this my way. No royal protocols, no diplomatic immunity. From now on, you follow my orders without question. Can you do that? I can try. Trying isn't good enough. In my world, hesitation gets people killed. If I tell you to run, you run. If I tell you to hide, you hide. If I tell you to shoot someone, you shoot them. No cuestiones, no moral debates. Just action. Because the people hunting us won't hesitate to kill you, and I won't let that happen on my watch. Lyralii nodded slowly. I understand. What's our first move? Ghost smiled grimly. We're going to do something they won't expect. Instead of running away from the people hunting us, we're going to hunt them back. Starting with whoever leaked your security details to the syndicate. He moved back to the salvaged equipment pack and began pulling out weapons and communication gear. Time to show these bastards why they call me Ghost. And time to teach a princess how to be a soldier. Outside the cave, the searchlights continued their sweeping patterns across the jungle canopy. But inside, 2 unlikely allies began planning their counterattack against forces that spanned star systems. The hunters were about to become the hunted. #The hunt begins. The Korthak mercenary camp sprawled across a clearing 10 kilometers from Ghost and Lyralii's cave hideout. Prefabricated shelters housed nearly 50 fighters from a dozen different species, all drawn by the promise of 10 million credits. The camp's perimeter was secured with motion sensors and automated turrets, but Ghost had been studying their patterns for 2 hours from his concealed position in the tree line. Princess Lyralii crouched beside him, her royal robes exchanged for combat fatigues salvaged from dead Zephyrian soldiers. The transformation was remarkable. In 3 days, she'd gone from pampered royalty to a competent operative, learning to move silently through hostile terrain and handle weapons with increasing proficiency. There, Ghost whispered, pointing to a command tent at the camp center. The Korthak commander, Thex Bloodclaw, according to the intel chatter I intercepted. If anyone knows who hired the syndicate to put the bounty on your head, it'll be him. Lyralii studied the target through the scope of her commandeered rifle. How we get to him? The camp is too well defended for a direct assault. We don't assault. We infiltrate. Ghost smiled grimly. I spent 2 years fighting Korthak raiders during the Frontier Wars. I know how they think. More importantly, I know what they fear. He pulled a small device from his pack and began adjusting its settings. Korthak society is built around pack hierarchy. Strength is respected, weakness is exploited. But there's one thing they fear more than anything else, which is Ghost. 20 minutes later, the first sentry died without a sound. Ghost's knife found the gap between the Korthak's chitinous armor plates, and the insectoid warrior dropped to the ground in a pool of greenish blood. Ghost dragged the body into the undergrowth and moved to his next target. The second sentry was a Rigelian, one of the amphibious species that served as shock troops for various mercenary organizations. Ghost approached from the creature's blind spot and used a sleeper hold that cut off blood flow to the Rigelian's triple brain configuration. The alien collapsed unconsciously, and Ghost left him tied up but alive in the bushes. One by one, the perimeter guards disappeared. Some died quickly and quietly. Others simply vanished, their posts empty when the next patrol arrived. Ghost varied his methods deliberately, leaving just enough evidence to suggest different causes of death or disappearance. A knife wound here, a broken neck there, equipment that had simply been abandoned. Meanwhile, Lyralii put her royal education to unexpected use. She'd spent years studying alien cultures and languages as part of her diplomatic training, and now she used that knowledge to sow confusion and paranoia through the camp's communication network. A whispered warning in Korthak battle cant about shadow demons in the jungle. A fragment of an old Rigelian ghost story broadcast on their tactical frequency. Subtle psychological warfare designed to prey on each species' deepest fears. The effect was everything Ghost could have hoped for. By the time he reached the camp's inner perimeter, the mercenaries were jumping at shadows and turning on each other with suspicion. Groups that had been cooperating in the hunt for the princess were now watching each other warily, wondering if their allies might be the next to vanish. Ghost slipped between two command vehicles and approached Thek's Bloodclaw's tent from the rear. Through the translucent material, he could see the Korthak commander studying tactical displays while arguing with his lieutenants. The conversation was heated, conducted in the clicking, buzzing language of the Korthak hives. Lyraliai's voice whispered in his earpiece. The commander is ordering increased patrols. 3 of his officers are suggesting they abandon the hunt and leave the planet. He's not taking that suggestion well. Good. Angry people make mistakes. Ghost drew his knife and prepared to cut through the tent wall. Are you in position? Yes. I have a clear shot on the communications array. When you give the signal, I'll take it down. Copy that. Wait for my mark. Ghost sliced through the tent's rear wall with surgical precision, creating an opening just large enough to slip through. Inside, Thek's Bloodclaw towered over his subordinates. The Korthak commander was nearly 3 meters tall, his carapace scarred from countless battles. His 4 arms gestured emphatically as he berated his officers for their cowardice. Ghost waited until the commander's back was turned, then stepped out of the shadows with his rifle aimed at the Korthak's head. "Gentlemen," he said in accented Korthak, "I believe you've been looking for me." The reaction was immediate and predictable. 2 officers reached for their weapons, but Ghost had anticipated that. His rifle coughed twice, sending hypersonic slugs through the skulls of the most aggressive officers. The remaining lieutenant, a scarred veteran with 1 missing eye, raised his hand slowly. Thek's Bloodclaw turned around with deliberate calm, his compound eyes reflecting the dim light of the tactical displays. When he spoke, it was in perfect English. The human called Ghost. "Your reputation precedes you, though I confess I expected someone larger." "Size isn't everything," Ghost replied, keeping his weapon trained on the commander's center mass. "Who hired the syndicate to place the bounty on Princess Lyraliai?" Bloodclaw's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Straight to the point. I admire that in a professional. Unfortunately, that information is worth considerably more than my life." "We'll see about that. Phoenix, take down the communications." Lyraliai's sniper shot destroyed the camp's primary communication array in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. Immediately, the sounds of confusion and shouting erupted from throughout the camp as the mercenaries lost contact with each other and their orbital support. "Now they can't call for help," Ghost said calmly. "And in about 10 minutes, my partner is going to start picking off your soldiers one by one until this camp is nothing but a graveyard. How much is that information worth compared to the lives of your entire command?" Bloodclaw studied Ghost with predatory intelligence. "You're bluffing. 1 sniper cannot eliminate 50 warriors." Princess Lyraliai graduated top of her class from the Zephyrian Military Academy, specialized in long-range precision elimination. She's not just royalty, commander. She's an assassin who happens to wear a crown. The lie rolled smoothly off Ghost's tongue. "Want to test my theory?" A shot rang out from the jungle, followed by screams from the camp's eastern perimeter. Then another shot, and another. Lyraliai was putting her newly acquired marksmanship skills to good use, targeting the camp's heavy weapons emplacements, and creating the impression of a systematic assault. Bloodclaw's remaining officer chittered nervously. "Commander, we should evacuate. This position is compromised." "Silence." Bloodclaw's voice cracked like a whip. But Ghost could see uncertainty creeping into the Korthak's posture. "You want information, human? Very well. But I want something in return. You're not in a position to negotiate." "Aren't I?" Bloodclaw gestured to his tactical display, which showed the positions of other mercenary groups across the planet. "I'm not the only hunter seeking the princess. Even if you kill me, even if you destroy this entire camp, there are 5 more groups converging on this region. You cannot fight them all. Watch me." Or, Bloodclaw continued, "I can call them off. Tell them the princess is dead, that you killed her rather than let her be taken alive. The hunt ends, the bounty is withdrawn, and you both disappear into the galaxy with new identities." Ghost felt a chill run down his spine. It was a tempting offer. Too tempting. What's the catch? No catch. Only pragmatism. This hunt, is becoming too expensive for all involved. Too many good soldiers are dying for what may be a political manipulation. The Syndicate would accept the princess's death if it serves their larger goals, which are continued war between the Zephyrian Empire and the Human Colonial Authority. As long as you're fighting each other, you're not interfering with their operations in the outer systems. Bloodclaw leaned forward slightly. The bounty was never really about revenge, Ghost. It was about ensuring the peace negotiations failed. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place in Ghost's mind. And if the princess dies during a failed rescue attempt by her human bodyguard, both sides blame each other and go back to war. Precisely. So I offer you a way out. The princess becomes a casualty of your escape attempt. You disappear. The war continues, but you're no longer part of it. Ghost pretended to consider the offer while his mind raced through the implications. If he took this deal, Lyralii would have to remain dead to the galaxy forever. No chance of reclaiming her identity, no opportunity to continue working for peace between their peoples. But she would be alive and free. The question was whether that would be enough for her. I need to discuss this with my partner, Ghost said finally. Give me 5 minutes. Of course. But remember, human, my offer expires when the other hunting parties reach this area. After that, even I won't be able to call them off. Ghost began backing toward the hole he'd cut in the tent wall. Phoenix, this is Ghost. Change of plans. We're extracting. Meet me at Rally Point Alpha in 10 minutes. As he slipped back into the jungle, Ghost's mind was already working on the next phase of their operation. Bloodclaw's offer was tempting, but it was also a trap. The Korthak commander had revealed too much about the conspiracy behind the bounty, which meant that the people pulling the strings wouldn't be content with just the princess's supposed death. They want to make sure Ghost died, too, to eliminate any witnesses who might expose their manipulation. The hunt was about to get much more dangerous. #betrayals and revelations. The rally point was an abandoned mining station built into a cliff face 5 kilometers from the mercenary camp. Corroded metal walkways clung to the rock like the bones of some ancient beast, and the main shaft descended into darkness beyond the reach of their lights. Ghost and Lyralii met in the station's control room, surrounded by defunct monitoring equipment and the musty smell of years of neglect. The Korthak commander offered us a way out, Ghost reported, keeping his voice low despite their isolation. Fake your death, and he calls off all the hunting parties. Lyralii studied the tactical display she'd jury-rigged from salvaged equipment. Red dots marked the positions of 5 separate mercenary groups, all converging on their general area. And you trust him? Not even a little. But he did reveal something important. This isn't just about revenge against your father. Someone wants to ensure the peace negotiations fail permanently, which means they'll want to eliminate both of us once we've served our purpose. Lyralii's violet eyes reflected the glow of the displays. We need to identify who's really behind this. Ghost nodded and activated a communication intercept device he'd taken from the Korthak camp. I recorded my conversation with Bloodclaw. Maybe we can trace his communications and find out who's giving him orders. The device hummed to life, parsing through hours of intercepted transmissions. Most were routine tactical communications between hunting parties, but one encrypted channel caught Ghost's attention. The signal pattern was familiar, Dominion military encryption. Prince Thrakek, Lyralii breathed as they decoded the transmission. He's been coordinating with the Syndicate from the beginning. The intercepted messages painted a clear picture of conspiracy. Prince Thrakek had leaked Lyralii's security details to the Syndicate, arranged for the attack on the Peace Summit, and even provided targeting data for the bounty hunters. His motivation was exactly what Lyralii had suspected. If she died before their marriage, he kept her massive dowry while gaining freedom to marry someone more politically advantageous. But there was more. Additional transmissions revealed communications between Thrakek and someone identified only as Shadow King, someone within the Zephyrian government itself. Your brother, Ghost said grimly. Crown Prince Valek is working with your intended husband to have you killed. Lyralii's hands clenched into fists. Both of them benefit from my death. Valek eliminates a potential rival for influence, and Thrakek gets rich while avoiding a marriage that would tie him to a lesser empire. There's something else. Ghost highlighted another set of transmissions. They're planning to blame your death on me. Then, use it as justification for a joint Dominion-Zephyrian military action against human colonies. A false flag operation to start a war that both sides can profit from. The implications hit Lyralii like a physical blow. Millions of innocent lives lost for political gain. We have to stop this. Agreed. But we'll need proof that will hold up to public scrutiny. Intercepted communications can be dismissed as forgeries. Ghost studied the tactical display again. We need one of the conspirators to confess publicly. Prince Thrakek is supposed to arrive at Nexus Prime tomorrow for a rescue mission to find my body. If we could capture him, too risky. He'll have a full military escort. Ghost considered their options. But there might be another way. Your brother is scheduled to give a memorial address from the capital tomorrow, officially announcing your death. What if he showed up to interrupt his eulogy? Lyralii's eyes widened. A public resurrection. It would certainly get the galaxy's attention. More than that, if we broadcast the evidence of the conspiracy during your appearance, it becomes impossible to suppress. But we'd have to get you off this planet first, and every ship in the system is either hunting us or controlled by our enemies. Not every ship. Lyralii pulled up the orbital tracking display. There's a human freighter in the outer system. The cargo hauler Distant Thunder. Captain Sarah Mitchell. Ghost frowned. How do you know that name? Because Captain Mitchell was my mother's friend during the early diplomatic exchanges between our peoples. She's one of the few humans my father actually trusts. Lyralii's voice carried a note of hope. If we can reach her ship, she might help us. Big if. The freighter is 300 kilometers above us, and we don't have transportation off-planet. Actually, we do. Lyralii highlighted another signal on the display. One of the hunting parties is using a light cruiser for orbital support. The syndicate vessel Bloodfawn. Ghost studied the ship's specifications. Lightly armed, fast, and currently holding position in low orbit to provide fire support for ground operations. If we could take it, we'd have both transportation and a way to transmit our evidence to the entire galaxy. Lyralii met his gaze. It's insane, but it might work. It's beyond insane. It's 2 people against a ship's crew of at least 20. Ghost paused, then smiled grimly. I like those odds. They spent the next hour planning their assault on the Bloodfawn. The ship was holding position above the largest mercenary encampment, using its sensors to coordinate the ground search. Its crew would be focused on the hunt below, not expecting an attack from their supposed prey. The plan was audacious in its simplicity. Ghost would infiltrate the mercenary camp and use their communication equipment to convince the Bloodfawn that Princess Lyralii had been captured and was being brought aboard for interrogation. When the ship's crew lowered their guard to receive their valuable prisoner, Lyralii would reveal herself and create enough confusion for Ghost to eliminate the bridge crew. It was a plan with approximately 1 million ways to go wrong, but it was the best option they had. As night fell over Nexus Prime, Ghost and Lyralii made their way toward the largest mercenary camp. The jungle seemed to whisper around them, alive with sounds that no Earth creature could produce. Bioluminescent plants cast shifting patterns of light and shadow that provided perfect cover for their approach. Marcus, Lyralii said quietly as they neared their objective. If we don't survive this, we will. But if we don't, I want you to know that these past few days have been the most honest of my life. For the first time, I've been judged by my actions rather than my bloodline. Ghost glanced at her, seeing determination and resolve in her violet eyes. You were always more than your bloodline, princess. You just needed the right circumstances to prove it. They reached the camp's perimeter and split up according to plan. Ghost moved toward the communication center while Lyralii positioned herself for the next phase of their operation. Around them, the mercenaries continued their search patterns, unaware that their prey had come hunting them instead. In the distance, the lights of the Bloodfawn gleamed against the star-filled sky. Freedom and revenge lay 300 kilometers above them, protected by armed guards and the vast emptiness of space. Ghost smiled as he approached his first target. He'd been called impossible odds before. The galaxy was about to learn why they called him Ghost, and why humans never backed down from a fight they believed in. The real hunt was just beginning. Hashtag the Ghost Gambit. The mercenary camp's communication center was a fortified bunker built from prefabricated armor plates. 2 guards flanked the entrance, their attention focused on the jungle rather than the shadows behind them. Ghost materialized from the darkness like his namesake, his movements fluid and silent. The first guard died without knowing he was under attack. Ghost's knife found a weak point in his armor, and the mercenary crumpled to the ground. The second guard turned at the sound, but Ghost was already moving. A thrown knife took the alien in the throat, and he fell beside his companion. Inside the bunker, 3 communications specialists monitored the search patterns of hunting parties across the planet. Ghost entered through the rear access panel, having disabled the electronic locks with equipment salvaged from the Korthak camp. The specialists were so focused on their screens that they didn't notice the human predator until it was too late. Nobody moves. Ghost commanded in Galactic Standard, his rifle trained on the senior operator. Touch an alarm, try to send a warning, and you all die. Understood. The 3 aliens nodded frantically. Ghost moved to the primary communication console and activated the orbital channel to the Bloodfang. Syndicate Vessel Bloodfang, this is ground control, Ghost said in accented Korthak. Priority message for your commander. The response came immediately. This is Captain Dex, aboard Bloodfang. Report. We have a package. The princess is unconscious but alive. Requesting immediate extraction for interrogation. There was a pause. Confirmed. We're detecting your signal from Camp 7. Prepare landing zone. We'll be down in 20 minutes. Ghost smiled grimly. Acknowledged. Be aware, the princess's bodyguard is still active in the area. Recommend full combat alert. Copy that. Bloodfang out. Ghost turned to the communication specialists. You just helped save your lives. Stay quiet, and you might live through this. He slipped back into the jungle, leaving the 3 aliens bound but alive in their bunker. 20 minutes wasn't long to prepare for what came next, but Ghost had learned to work with impossible timetables during his years as a soldier. Princess Lyralii was waiting at the designated landing zone, a cleared area near the camp's edge. She'd used mud and plant dyes to create realistic-looking bruises and cuts, and her wrists were bound with restraints that she could slip with a simple twist of her hands. Are you ready for this? Ghost asked, checking her disguise one final time. As ready as I can be for getting captured by the people trying to kill me. Lyralii's voice was steady despite the circumstances. Remember, once I'm aboard that ship, you'll have exactly 5 minutes before they realize something's wrong. I'll be there in 4. The Bloodfang descended through the night sky like a falling star, its engines screaming as it fought the planet's gravity. The ship was larger than Ghost had hoped, a modified courier vessel with enough firepower to level a city block. Its landing struts touched down in the clearing with a thunder of displaced air and scorched earth. The ship's cargo ramp descended, and armed figures emerged. Ghost counted 8 crew members, all wearing syndicate colors and carrying military-grade weapons. Their leader was a scarred human who looked like he'd spent years fighting in the galaxy's nastier conflicts. Where's the package? The leader demanded in English. 2 disguised mercenaries from the camp dragged the unconscious Lyralii forward. She played her part perfectly, her head lolling as if heavily sedated. The syndicate leader examined her with professional interest. This is really her? Princess Lyralii of the Zephyrian Empire? Confirmed. Biometric scans matched the bounty posting. One of the fake mercenaries gestured to a handheld scanner. 10 million credits as promised. Payment will be transferred once we confirm her identity aboard ship. The leader signaled his crew. Load her in the detention cell. Full restraints. The boss wants her alive for questioning. Ghost watched from concealment as they carried Lyralii up the cargo ramp. Once the princess was aboard, the ship's crew would discover their mistake. But by then, he'd be inside their perimeter. The Bloodfang's engines began spooling up for takeoff. Ghost sprinted from the tree line, using the engine noise to mask his approach. The cargo ramp was already rising, but Ghost reached it just in time to leap aboard. He rolled behind a stack of cargo containers as the ship lifted off from Nexus Prime surface. Inside the ship's detention area, Lyralii allowed herself to be secured in a holding cell while the Syndicate crew celebrated their capture of the galaxy's most wanted fugitive. Their leader, who'd introduced himself as Captain Vex, was already contacting his superiors to report their success. Priority transmission to Prince Thrakek, Vex said into his communicator. Package secured. Proceeding to rendezvous coordinates for delivery. The response crackled through the ship's speakers. Excellent work, Captain. The prince will be pleased. Execute Phase 2 once you've confirmed the prisoner's identity. Copy that. What's Phase 2? Kill the princess and her bodyguard. Make it look like they died resisting capture. The political benefit will be greater than keeping her alive. Lyralii felt ice form in her stomach. Even if their plan succeeded, Thrakek intended to have her murdered anyway. The conspiracy ran deeper than she'd imagined. Meanwhile, Ghost was making his way through the ship's maintenance corridors. The Bloodfang was a converted courier vessel, its layout familiar from his time with colonial forces. He'd memorized the ship's blueprint during their planning session, and now he moved with purpose toward the bridge. The first crew member he encountered was an engineer checking power distribution relays. Ghost's knife found its mark before the alien could cry out. He dragged the body into an equipment alcove and continued forward. The ship's bridge was located amidships, protected by blast doors and electronic locks. Ghost bypassed the security systems using techniques learned during special operations missions, his fingers flying over alien control panels with practiced precision. Inside the bridge, Captain Vex was studying tactical displays showing the approach of Prince Thrakek's flagship. The Dominion vessel was massive, a dreadnought-class warship that could vaporize the Bloodfang without working up an energy surge. "Sir," one of the bridge crew reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the detention area. The prisoner is awake and requesting to speak with you." Vex smiled coldly. "Put on screen. Let's see what the princess has to say." Lyralii's image appeared on the bridge's main display. She cleaned herself up and now looked every inch the royal she was born to be. Her violet eyes blazed with controlled fury as she spoke. "Captain Vex, I am Princess Lyralii of the Zephyrian Empire. You are holding me illegally, and I demand immediate release." Vex laughed.